Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about Quo. The entity known as Quo was contacted by the channeling team at L&L Research about 40 years ago in 1986. They've been channeled almost 2,000 times since then up to present day and continue to be an uplifting source of spiritual teachings for many. Yet their identity remained a mystery for years, and to this day, much about them and about the nature of channeling is still a mystery. Who exactly is Quo? Where are they from? And why are they helping us? Are they aliens or angels? And is the real universe outside us or inside us? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups of the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelaw1@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as our recordings of monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty and occasional Q&As with other members of the channeling team, including Gary Bean, Tricia Bean, and Austin Bridges. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelaw1@gmail.com if you would like to join any of our Q&As. As mentioned, today's episode is about Quo. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Chloe.
Hey everyone, my name's Chloe. I'm calling from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you for including me as always.
We're always happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And Luis?
Yep, hello. I'm Luis Rieti from Austin, Texas, originally from Honduras, and as always, very happy to be invited by Jonathan and excited to talk with Kathy and Chloe about this topic.
Always happy to have you on, Luis. Thank you for joining us. And Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm from the Kentucky-Anna area, currently living in southern Indiana, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us for the first time and hopefully, presumably not the last. Want to remind viewers, as always, that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are just normal people like you talking about things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on who is Quo. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of the Law of One as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one, and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages that we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they are subconscious or unconscious, as if asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness, different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying they do for centuries. We refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals, a significant quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond that of what we would think of as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. Clearly, a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth and sixth densities as whatever would be comparable quantum leaps above and beyond fourth density. There's much more to be said about it. If you're interested, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latwii at fifth density, Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research team, channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then up to the present day by the LNL research channeling team. Transcripts of those sessions can be found at the Conscious Channeling Library at the LNL research website shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's take a look at a couple passages on who is Quo. On October 17th, 1988, Quo said, "We have been waiting for this opportunity to speak upon our identity for some time, as this instrument would say. We even gave our group a name which compassed the query which to this instrument is crucial. That is, that as this instrument has noted with its intellectual mind previously, our name in the language you call Latin would mean literally who. We have chosen this vibration for this particular group. It is spelled in your English language." October 21st, 1990, Quo said, "We have chosen this vibration for this particular group. It is spelled in your English language with a Q, then your apostrophe, followed by a U and an O. This group was curious as to the meaning of this vibration, and after some period of time asked us about it, and we responded that we have chosen this vibration for this particular group in order to cause it to ask who was Quo, for within your Latin language it was discovered by this group that Quo was who." I think Gary Bean actually researched this a little further not that long ago, and that found that technically in Latin the word Quo means something other than who. If I was smarter and more prepared, I would have looked that up. But suffice it to say, at the time of the channeling, in Carla's mind, the word Quo meant who in Latin, and I just think it's funny that they chose that specifically in order to get them to ask who they were. What do you think, Chloe? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I think, I find it a little humorous that they picked that name, like just kind of lighthearted, good energy type of decision, like no need to be pretentious, just like, I don't know. I really enjoy these passages. I haven't seen them before, so thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing that. There was another passage that I didn't share here where I think they were saying it was Latwii's idea. Latwii thought it would be humorous to make their name something that would make them curious and ask, which sounds like Latwii. What do you think, Luis? Any thoughts on anything here?
Something that came to mind when this was the first time I read this about the name. I did find it a little funny, but I thought of Ramana Maharshi actually, and his focus on self-inquiry, particularly, with the question, "Who am I?" or "Who is the thinker? Who thought this thought?" Right, and he always taught that was the fastest way to the self, right? To go through the thought itself into who is actually thinking. And so I actually found this really nice connection, I guess, between Ramana Maharshi and Quo when I read that, and I was happy to find it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that. And Quo has said many times that that question of who am I is one of the best ways to start your spiritual journey. So really appreciate that connection. Kathy, anything to add? Any thoughts, reflections?
My thought was the name was to add to the mystery, to kind of encourage, inspire the seeking and the asking.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's worth noting that the last channeling of Ra was on March 15th, 1984. The first channeling of Quo was January 12th, 1986. So it looks like between January 86 and October 88, which I think is the first time that question came up, it took them almost 3 years to figure out that they were supposed to like ask who Quo was. They were a little bit slow on it. And I think in subsequent channelings, Quo did say it took you guys a while to get around to asking, which is just super funny to me, but it continues to unfold. Did anybody have any other thoughts, reflections on anything here before we look at another passage? Cool. Well, let's look at a passage on where is Quo. On January 20th, 2002, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, those of Latui who are of the density of light have joined with those of Hatan of the density of love, and also have joined with those of Ra of the density of unity. Those of Ra, as you are aware, experienced their third density upon the planet which you call Venus, and were honored to have a most efficient experience with the third density of Venus. Those of Hatan and those of Latui had somewhat similar third density experiences upon planets which are distant from this solar system and which are as yet undiscovered by your astronomers. Thus, the name or place of such is meaningless. Yet each social memory complex has found the third density experience to be that which has produced the tempering of seeking, and the fire of the testing was intense and true. Really interesting. I don't find many passages where they really talk about where any of these entities seem to be from. And the takeaway lesson that I'm getting from the second paragraph here is it really doesn't matter where we're from. I think it's more the messages that are coming through that are important. And I definitely have found that to be true. They don't really seem to be big on names or geographic locations or anything. What do you think, Luis? Any thoughts on anything here?
I found it interesting, um, this blending of the three different densities. And I guess it's another quote. I don't know if you'll read it after this or not, where it kind of says who does what. Is that coming up?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, I won't jump to that. But anyways.
Spoiler alert. It's coming. Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, I just think it's a quite beautiful thing, and going back to who, right? The question of who am I? And these intergalactic, interdimensional planetary races coming together to serve one third density planet. I just think that's just incredible, and that we are a part of that too.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and spoiler, as we will see in some of the other future passages, they're going to say, we might all be in your mind, and it really wouldn't matter. We might not even be outside of your own mind. That's just the super trippy part, but we'll save that for another passage. Kathy, any thoughts on anything here?
I was kind of struck by the word tempering, and I did look it up, and which has often been used, say, like tempering, like glass, or in cooking, or with metal.
Right.
And in glass making, it's tempering to make the glass stronger, like 4 times stronger than it was. So I'm
Right.
looking at that like we're being made stronger through, of course, what we go through and on this 3D planet.
That's interesting that it's used with glass. I was not aware of that. I've heard it referred to making swords or steel or other forms of metal with a similar meaning. I think it's made stronger, which is sounds like third density. But yeah, I hadn't thought of glass. That's a beautiful way to look at it too. Chloe, anything to add? Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah. It also caught my attention that they used the word tempering because I already knew, you temper chocolate, tempering with metalwork. I didn't know about glass, so that was cool.
I
But
didn't know about chocolate. It's used in chocolate
yeah,
also.
because you temper chocolate so that it's like nice and shiny, and then
Oh,
if you don't temper it right, your chocolate will look dull. I don't
Wow.
know.
oh,
Just
interesting.
just a little side note because I tend to do a lot of chocolate work.
Viewers, if you didn't learn anything else from this episode, you learned something valuable right there. That's great.
Yeah, but so we use heat to temper things, and
Right,
then they refer to the fire of
right,
testing
right,
that is intense and true. And
right.
I don't know, that really stuck with me because that's definitely how I feel about my experience on Earth is that, you know, a lot of my experience is kind of like I feel like there's a fire underneath me
For sure. For
getting
sure.
me to like do what I am meant to do.
For sure.
And yeah, I don't know, just very interesting to
Yeah,
describe
Rob
it like
did note that third density is by far the shortest of all the densities of the octave, and the catalyst is so much more intense here than anywhere else. And it has been likened many times to a furnace where we are tempered, or like the athanor, they've used the term athanor. It's the furnace that alchemists would use to transform lead into gold. And I think that's very much what third density
this.
is about, intense transformation. Anyone else have any other thoughts on anything here?
Alchemists also mention the philosopher's stone, which is
Right.
not a literal thing, but a metaphor for like enlightenment or like,
Yeah. Yeah.
developing your spirit further. So
Yeah. For
alchemy is
sure.
pretty cool. I like that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, we did a podcast episode a little while ago on spiritual alchemy because, yeah, there's
I'll
so
have to
many
go back.
passages that refer to that sort of process and how third density is really like a athanor, a furnace for transformation. Yeah, check it out. It was, I don't know, sometime a couple months ago. Anybody else? Any thoughts on anything here? Well, let's take a look at a passage on why is Quo. But before we do that, pop quiz for you panelists or your viewers or MCU fans. Name the movie or any of their characters or actors in this meme. Does anybody know anything about this?
This is a Guardians of the Galaxy movie,
It wasn't
and
Guardians of the Galaxy. It was Avengers Infinity Wars. But yes,
Avengers. Yeah, because
Oh,
that guy, first guy, is from I
right,
forget his name,
right.
honestly.
Quill. Yeah. And
Yes.
he's holding Spider-Man, and that's Tony Stark, Iron Man in the second panel, and Drax down below. It's a really funny scene. Anybody who has seen Avengers Infinity Wars understands the joke, and it's hilarious. Otherwise, let's go ahead and take a look at a passage on why is Quo. On November 28th, 2004, Quo said, "This particular principle was created because this particular instrument has a certain way of tuning and preparing for contact with Confederation entities. She prays for contact with the highest and best contact that she may handle in a stable and conscious manner. It is a very precise request. The entity whom she tended to receive upon making this prayer prior to her contact with those of the Ra group was the Latwii group, and she had received those of Latwii fairly consistently for several years before experiencing the trance contact with those of the Ra group. As each within this circle is aware, the contact with those of Ra was a very narrow band contact, which was only possible during that window of opportunity when the ones known as Dawn, Jim, and Carla were all in the circle. And when the one known as Dawn passed from this third density experience, the possibility of further contact with this particular entity was ended. However, this instrument continued to tune and pray in the same manner, and those of Latwii and others within the Confederation, including those of Hatan and those of Ra, felt that perhaps the creation of a principle would best respond to this instrument's very real desire for the highest and best contact of which she was capable. Since those of Ra could not speak with this instrument in a conscious and stable manner, there was no possibility for that social memory complex being the speaker. However, both those of Hatan and those of Latwii had previously enjoyed sharing the thoughts of those of Ra in a teach-learning circle, and the three groups decided that they would blend into one principle, with the ones known as Hatan being responsible simply for projecting a vibration of love, which I feel sure that each of you is aware as we speak. The ones known as Latwii took the responsibility for speaking to this instrument, and the ones known as Ra were part of the process of defining just how to respond to the question that was presented to the principle of Quo. So as those of Quo speak, it is those of Latwii who are creating the concepts which this instrument receives and translates into words. I believe this is the passage that Luis was referring to previously. And yeah, really beautiful how this works out. Kathy, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I just thought it was interesting. It seems like Latwii acts as like a channel, like a go-between
Sounds like it.
between the two. And then let's see, I think you're getting ready to say, is this the slide you just read, or is it something
It was a
else?
two-parter. So this is the
Oh,
first part of the passage, and this is the second
oh,
part.
okay. I don't know if you read the part about simply Hatan being responsible for simply projecting a
Love.
vibration of love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that bothered me for a minute. I'm like, simply, but our English language, I looked up, it's like the word originates like say Latin simplex, meaning like to fold once. It's talked about like purity and wholeness. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
because that's an
interesting.
important job.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
not it's not as easy or simple like we might think,
For
right?
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think without the love, a lot of what comes through could seem kind of intellectual or cold or just kind of missing that warmth of love that is such an important part of what I get from so many quote channelings. Oh, what do you think, Chloe? Anything to add?
Just a little bit. When I originally read The Raw Contact, I didn't know that there were any further channelings, and I did go through a like very mini grieving process where I was like, oh my gosh, this contact's over. We're never gonna hear from Ra again, and like that's fine. Like I learned so much, so it's fine. And then I discovered these channelings, and I just think it's a quite an elegant way to continue our connection with Ra without putting anyone at risk.
Right. And I think that's why they chose that name, because they knew, I think they assumed that there was some sort of grieving process at the loss of the Raw contact. And I think when they came up with the name of Quo, they were hoping that eventually they would ask who Quo was, and that when they discovered that Ra was part of the Quo principle, presumably there would be a happy and joyous response. I asked Jim about this several times because I was super curious about this, since it took like about 3 years for them to get around to asking who Quo was. And I think if I remember, his response was just that they were just so caught up in the process of channeling, they didn't really have the, oh my God, Ra is still alive and still with us response that I was kind of expecting. But, you know, far be it from me to put myself in their place. So, what do you think, Luis? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I thought that the description of the contribution of each of these three members was beautiful because it's a very short one sentence, but it really crystallizes, I think, the density,
Yeah.
that each is a part of. And obviously, with our lessons in third density, learning to love unconditionally and just the power that is in love purely without any words, without any action, then Latui coming in and bringing together, just like you said, the the most universal concepts and the most specific, experiences, and verbalizing them in the way that is not only as a creator but trying to be as accurate and compassionate, right, with the
Right.
words.
Right.
And then Raw hanging out in the background and really focusing on kind of the architecture or the, yeah, you could say the archetypal experience of what is happening, what is the creator experiencing in this moment, right? And providing that background for the response. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I had not thought of it that way, but it definitely makes sense. It's worth noting, as we said in the beginning, that Ra appears to be a social memory complex, a planetary consciousness at sixth density. Latui appears to be a social memory complex at fifth density. Hatan appears to be a social memory complex at fourth density. And the rest of us bozos are down here at third density on Earth. So they have many times referred to the Quo contact as a way of getting a step down version of Ra, because since Ra is at sixth density, we're at third density. As they said, it's a very narrow band contact that could only be reached when Carlo was in a trance state. And there was another session where they said something to the effect that the entities of Ra were appalled to see the toll that it took upon this instrument to bring forth that which it did channel when it was in trance state. Since anyone who knows about the Ra contact knows, yeah, it took a very difficult physical and psychic toll on Carlo. So by bringing Latui into it and Hatan into it, they were able to bring the love density of Hatan at fourth density, the wisdom density of Latui at fifth density, and the unity density of Ra at sixth density, and bring those all together in a very balanced love, wisdom way. It's a beautiful thing. Anybody else have any other thoughts on anything here?
I actually had one more thought about Dawn, actually, and I feel like sometimes. Don doesn't get a lot of attention from the Love One community. And first in this passage, right, like how important of a role he played that it wasn't even possible to do the
Right.
channelings anymore without him.
Right.
But I guess just a little call out too, because in my experiences too, I feel like connecting with Don as well, there's just so much amazing energy there for all the Love One community, I would say.
For sure. Yeah, it reminds me there was some passage in the Raw Contact where they talked about how they had been looking far and wide and for a long time to find the right blending combination of entities that would be able to maintain that contact. And they compared it to a paint chip. They were trying to find a group of entities that would match the paint chip they were looking for. And as you were suggesting, it was only when Carla, Jim, and Don were together that together they formed that right color. And without Don, they were missing a key component. So super fascinating, super interesting to me. Anyone else have any other thoughts, questions, reflections on anything? I know from time to time people ask Jim in our Q&As if they're ever going to make contact with Ra again, and he always says as courteously and politely as possible that no, that's not going to happen, not without the three of them being together. And I think out there's other people who claim to be channeling Ra, and it's possible they are, but I just kind of doubt it unless they really have the right paint chip color that these guys did. Let's go ahead and take a look at another passage on the question of aliens or angels. On October 17th, 1988, the same session that we quoted from earlier, Quo said, "We have appeared as many, many things, including angels. We appear in thought alone at this time, and find that the mass of those who would seek our information prefer the, as this instrument would say, mythology of the spacecraft and the visitors from elsewhere to the equally valid manifestation in thought of the angels or the vision. Were we to appear as ourselves, those of the Confederation would look most variously, and we feel our impact upon your people is more proof against abuse of free will by our speaking through instruments such as this one and using the most desired metaphors and images concerning our inner nature and function in order that we may aid the most entities. It matters not who entities think we are. We attempt to satisfy the need for otherness, mystery, and solemnity, and to indicate our polarity in a clear way. After that, Our dependence is upon the relationship we may forge with a carefully tuned instrument, and in that way, by collaboration, we offer what humble gifts we have. I think it's just really, really funny that they're saying, we've appeared as angels to many people, but they really don't seem to be that interested in us. They're really more interested in aliens and people and UFOs than angels. So we'll just go with whatever works for you. I just think that's super funny. What do you think, Chloe? Any thoughts on anything here?
I think it makes a lot of sense because, this idea of like seeing angels and interacting with angels is definitely something that had its heyday,
Mm.
really did. And I can see how the shift gradually happened. And, I had one experience where I was in my home. I received basically a telepathic message to go outside at 2 in the morning. I went outside, a UFO flew over my house, and then it started raining. And as definitely that need of otherness, that mystery, the solemn feeling when the craft flew off and it started raining and I was alone on the whole street. And I can see like an experience like that, but just pretend I'm like super religious and it was an angel. Like
Yeah.
I can see how they're kind of interchangeable for people, just depending on your beliefs and what would resonate with you the most.
Yeah. Well, I think earlier we were talking about how the name Quo suggests mystery, and I think that is something that is such an important part of the spiritual teachings that we get from Quo and others, the idea of mystery, solemnity, otherness, that there's more to reality than we think. And oftentimes, maybe it takes a UFO sighting or it takes a really interesting dream or synchronicity or whatever that gets people thinking about the mysteries of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it takes. Oh, what do you think, Luis? Anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with that, and feel like I also definitely experienced, I guess before finding the loved one, a bunch of strange phenomena would happen, and I had never been into UFOs in my life until like maybe a year or two before finding the loved one. But all of a sudden, it felt so real, and I would be kind of freaked out and had this feeling of paranoia. There was like these beings watching me, and I guess that it was important for me to experience that so that I could kind of loosen my grip on reality a little bit, you know. But the other side of that is, and I really appreciated from Quo's comment here is essentially saying we're not here to be a hero, right? Like we don't need to take up any special roles. This way of working through channels, really, we're hearing a person's voice. We're hearing the person's even personal distortions, right? Which has been confirmed, right? This seems to be the most effective way to be of service. And I definitely see how in our global culture, or I guess you could say planetary mind, this bias for a hero is so strong. Like we almost sometimes expect to see something fantastic to tell us what to do and how to live our lives, right? And so
For
I
sure.
really appreciate that.
For sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in that second paragraph where they said, were we to appear as ourselves, those the Confederation would look most variously, and we feel our impact upon your people is more proof against that. I'm pretty sure they're referring to the ancient Egyptians when they did appear to them, and the Egyptians freaked out and started worshiping as gods because they looked different. They looked various from them, and they obviously appeared to be superior to them in so many ways. So it was a thing that they have learned from since to not do that anymore and just appear in thoughts, I guess. What do you think, Kathy? Anything to add?
Yes, I love the whole passage and the whole idea, thinking about angels and aliens, and I feel like they're very careful to only show us what we're ready for, whether that be through whatever sense, whether it's telepathically, energy, or whether we get to see something physical. Um, I also believe we see the world through our own lens of consciousness. So, what I see, someone else is not going to see.
Yeah.
And they're very careful to not infringe upon our not only free will, but like our nervous system. So we're not overwhelmed.
Right.
So yeah, I think they're very I think they're looking after us.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not just the Confederation. I think the whole sub logos is our whole third density experience, especially at this time, at the end of third density and the beginning of fourth, is really to try to give people catalyst that gets them to think beyond what they think of as third density reality. I think if you ask most people if they've ever seen anything that made them think that maybe there was more to reality than they thought, most people probably wouldn't think of anything right away. But if they think about it a while, and I've experienced this in conversations, they do remember, oh, yeah, that's right. There was that thing that happened. Or in my case, I can think of a few times in my life where things happen that, wow, made me realize I think there's more going on here than I think. And that, I think, is a great entryway into the mystery that Chloe was talking about. Anybody else have any other thoughts on anything from this passage? I think I've got another one about angels. Anything on this one before we look at a couple more? These are really interesting to me. This is from July 22nd, 1990. Quote said, "Do you think we would appeal to you as angels? Angels are passe." As Chloe said, they had their heyday. We're over angels. We learned many years ago to lose our wings and gain a planetary identity. We speak still the truth, and yet not all of the truth. So we are angels, and we are those who come from without your planet, adding planetary influences of our own. And then on December 2nd, 1990, Quo said, "This instrument is provincial and archaic and requests that we use the term angels as we greet you. It increases her ability to channel and aids each of us in the other's polarization. We have found in this instrument no taint of personal bias in the worship of the Creator, but only in its usage of myth to focus upon the mystery. Consequently, we may say to you that we are those of the confederation of angels and planets in the service of the one infinite Creator, and so we shall attempt to address ourselves to this instrument. But we do not ask you to accept either our angel status or our extraterrestrial status. We care not. Think that we are of this instrument's mind alone. That would satisfy us, and it would satisfy this instrument." There are so many things in here that I want to talk about, but I think it's just hilarious, the part about angels for passe. We learned many years ago to drop the wings and gain flying saucers instead. And that, if you use the LNL research search engine to search up Confederation of Angels and Planets in the service of the one infinite Creator, they have often referred to themselves by that name. So clearly they need a new marketing strategist, because that does not fit on a bumper sticker or t-shirt. What do you think, Luis? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I really like the sentence, we speak still the truth and yet not all of the truth. And that,
Yeah, what do you make out of that?
I think that's the case for all beings that speak any spoken word at all.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just fascinating that the personal myth, right, in our world, really affected by religious upbringing and in the cultural traditions, really make a huge impact on people. And I really appreciate this approach that you don't really find in almost any other tradition. Like, most traditions are like, listen to this, right? This is the
Right.
truth.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I take it also, I'm sure like you guys do, it's a part of the personal philosophy you accept, right? That realization that no matter how clearly I see something, it's still not complete.
Yeah. 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 Beautifully said. I got nothing to add to that. Kathy, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yes, I like the point that Luis brought up because it's just about the whole material, the law of one is you're taking what resonates with you.
Right.
It's not a doctrine. It's, so and along with that, back to about the angels, and I think it's we see what we expect to see, and but we have to be open. It comes to like living in the present moment, listening, stopping the noise, the distraction, being still,
Right.
kind of tapping in. I think that's and being open to the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think it's so funny when they say down to the last paragraph, we do not ask you to accept either our angel status or our extraterrestrial status. We care not. It's like Boromir, the Lord of the Rings. It's like we're asking, do you care if we think of you as aliens or angels? It's like, yeah, we don't really care. I just think it's so funny that they are so cavalier about it. Yeah, whatever. You can think of us as whatever you want. We don't care. Chloe, you have anything to add to that?
Just to go a little further on the idea that it is somewhat irrelevant whether angels or aliens or of the instrument's mind, because the information being shared is coming through no matter how you perceive the source of it. And,
Mm,
obviously we want to use that for discretion, and we want to make sure like we're not just believing anything we hear, but that's where like Kathy said, taking in what resonates and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
leaving what doesn't.
Well, and I think it's so important. I think it's often things that people get hung up on, forgetting that it's the message that's probably more important than the messenger. Whether they're aliens or angels or just a figment of somebody's imagination, if you just look at the teachings themselves and what they're saying, they're still beautiful in the same way that, you look at the parables that Jesus taught, and it's like nobody thinks he's telling factual accounts of things that actually happen. They're all made up, they're parables, but there's really profound spiritual teachings in there. So that's the thing to really focus on, I think. Anybody else have any thoughts, reflections on anything here? I
I
do.
guess
Oh, go ahead, please.
just one thought that came in, regarding thinking of it through like the energy system or the chakras, and a lot of times in conversations with people that have a very strong religious bias or traditional bias, it's the yellow ray of, my group has it right, essentially, right?
Yeah,
Like it's almost like a little competition. It's
yeah,
and I appreciate what you said, Clay, that it they're saying the opposite. It doesn't matter who says it. It's the message. And I think our mind sometimes gets comfortable with the yellow chakra way of seeing things. So even us that are really open to the law of one and the LNL research transcripts, keeping ourselves in check too, right? That we're not, oh, we have it right because we have these access to these sources, right? But
right.
yeah, I just agree with that.
Yeah, and I appreciate your mentioning other religions, because that is definitely something that I appreciated very much about the Law of One, that they are open, accepting of all religions, all philosophies, all spiritual paths as all valid ways, pathways to the Creator that you just don't typically find in most of the major organized religions of the world, where it's, well, nope, there's only one correct one, and we just happen to be that one. So it's definitely something I appreciated. If it's okay with you, I did want to explore this last part a bit more. They said, think that we are of this instrument's mind alone. That would satisfy us, and that would satisfy this instrument. let's go ahead and take a look at a couple passages about the universe within. Same session, October 17th, 1988. Quo said, "In our opinion, we are completely within the instrument's mind. That is, we are allowed to speak because the instrument has made a pathway deeply enough into its own subconscious levels of thought that it is able to contact principles which lie deep within the mind and are influenced by the various energies of gravity in a spiritual sense, which flow rhythmically through the metaphysical portion of each individual as well as the physiological portion. The study of the latter is called astrology. The study of the former could be called metaphysical astrology, and would reveal an inner universe of which the outer infinity of galaxies is but an hologram which moves in a predictable fashion, allowing at various times the various life-giving, gem-like energies of the archetypical subconscious to flash through to the surface and produce each day differently, each moment slightly variously, the message of love and light. This instrument, therefore, may identify us with itself in the deepest reality of which we are aware. The infinity and reality lie not outside, but inside the non-thing, which is each entity's consciousness." There's a lot in this passage that I really don't understand in particular, but what they're saying here, and they have said quite a few times, is that, yeah, in many ways we are inside the instrument's mind, because when you get deep enough, you find that we're all one mind anyway. If you were to go beneath the consciousness of an individual mind, according to our friends in the Confederation, you would reach what's called the racial mind, the collective subconscious of one's race, either on this planet or quite possibly on another planet. Keep going deeper below that and you would get to the planetary mind, the collective mind of Mother Earth, Mother Gaia. Keep going deeper and deeper below that, like you're exploring the roots of a very deep tree, and you would reach what they call the archetypical mind, the mind of our solar system, the mind of our galaxy, the mind of our local part of the universe. And keep going deeper and deeper and deeper below that, you would reach the universal mind, the cosmic mind, the mind of the one infinite creator. And if you understand that to be true, and I think that is a pretty basic part of law of one cosmology, then yeah, of course. You could say that everything is with the instrument's mind because we're all like brain cells in a big giant cosmic mind. So that makes perfect sense to me. What do you think? Kathy, any thoughts on any of that?
I immediately thought of the same thing you were saying is about we're all one, and I thought of the analogy, I guess, with like trees or flowers in a field, that there's the unseen underground like fungal network where
Right,
they send resources to each other, and they even
right,
give some like SOS calls for help, and
right,
so you can't see any of that, but they're
right,
they're all connected. So I
right.
think contact with one of us is gonna, what one does affects the whole,
Yeah.
affects the all.
Yeah, appreciate you using the tree example and the fungal network. It's a beautiful connection of what seem to be separate trees, but in so many ways are one. Or, I believe aspen trees, what appears to be a grove of separate aspen trees, I believe are all just one tree that's popping up in
Oh
different
yeah,
places.
one entity.
That's amazing, beautiful thing. What do you think, Chloe? Any other thoughts to add? You who live in Colorado.
Yes. I'm gonna get a little artsy real quick because this is reminding me of a certain section of a poem, one of my favorite poems. I Carry Your Heart With Me by E. E. Cummings. And I'm not going to
Oh,
recite the whole thing, just the relevant, but
I love E. E.
um,
Cummings.
so it goes, here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of the sky of a tree called life. Grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And, I just think that's extremely relevant right now because we are talking about the way we're all interconnected, the way there's something very deep within us that goes, the roots are bound, but it also goes upward. And it's like that upward spiral towards the
Yeah,
creator. And,
yeah,
I'm an astrology girly, so I definitely can see how the astrology in a physiological sense is like really interesting that it can be reflected inward, and there's a metaphysical astrology within us. And I'm already of the belief that the physical reality is an illusion, that we're generating the experience from within. It's just really hard because we have these like physical bodies that seem so real, and obviously we can touch and feel, but
Yeah. Yeah, it is indeed what they seem to be suggesting here, that they say more explicitly in a couple passages we're going to look at shortly, that, yeah, the outer universe is an illusion. The real universe is actually within. That's super freaky, and I think it's what they're talking about here. Where's the hologram part? Yeah. An inner universe of which the outer infinity of galaxies is but a hologram which moves in predictable fashion. The outer universe is just a hologram of the inner universe. Let's reflect on that a bit. What do you think, Luis? Any thoughts on that or anything else from this passage?
Yeah, I'm reminded by, I think it was a quote passage where they described that having a mind is, in a way, one of the biggest sacrifices the Creator made as a gift to itself, because it's only through the faculty of having the instrument of a mind that this illusion of different individuals can exist. And that's how I interpret this, that through our mind we see outward into the universe, but what we see is unique to that mind. But what lies beyond the mind, that's consciousness. And that's where the mystery lies, right? Because we all come from one consciousness. It's one. And we go through this crazy journey.
Right.
And I think right now in the third density, it's kind of like the climax of the mind, where the illusion of mind is explored like acutely. In later densities, the faculty of spirit is given more attention. But in the end of this whole process, we go back to consciousness.
Yeah.
But somehow, even though consciousness cannot fundamentally change, it does change.
Yeah.
And there's, I'll end with this Kabbalistic teaching. So I'm a Kabbalist myself, and at the top of the tree of life is Kether, which is the first emanation of the Creator. And the name Eheye is attributed to it, the name of God. And in a lot of modern translations, it matches to I am, which obviously makes sense as consciousness. But a mystical Kabbalist knows kind of the deeper meaning of the name, which is translated to I am forever becoming. So I think I'll just let that sit.
You're just going to leave us hanging on that. Okay. All right. Be that way. Keep your secrets then. Yeah.
It's not a secret.
Yeah.
It just,
No, it reminds me, there was episode we did on quantum physics, and there was one pioneer of quantum physics whose name escapes me right now, but he said basically there's only one mind in the universe, there's only one consciousness in the universe, and we're all just part of it. That's an amazing, another way to look at the idea of oneness, basically. Let's take a look at a couple other passages. This is from September 20th, 1992. Quo said, "This is perhaps the most used of our ways of communication, and we are not identified as a source other than the self. That is because selves who can receive us in this inspiriting manner think of themselves in a universal way." And on November 27th, 2002, Quo said, "The process of true knowing comes to one through one's own systems of guidance from within that universe that dwells in that shadowy ocean of your brain cells, which opens a gateway to an infinite universe that is the true place where each lives." And on January 21st, 1996, Quo said, "For each of you is the universe. You are looking out at a world that is actually interior. Such is the illusion created by flesh." So beautiful in so many different ways of saying, I think, the real universe is within, the outer universe is an illusion. And I think that part in the first passage got my attention the most, that we are not identified as a source other than the self, because selves who can receive us in this inspiriting manner think of themselves in a universal way. Kind of reminds me of the diagram we were just looking at. If you think of yourself as part of one universal cosmic mind, then yes, of course, everything is within your mind. That would make sense. What do you think, Chloe? Any thoughts on anything here?
I feel like I've talked about some of this at length, so I'll just, the thing that sticks out to me in this passage the most is, for each of you is the universe. You are looking out at a world that is actually interior. Such is the illusion created by flesh.
Isn't that amazing?
What
Isn't
more
that
can I
beautiful?
say?
Nothing. I got nothing. Oh, what do you think, Luis? Any thoughts? Anything to add?
I like the sentence that points out that is because selves who can receive us in this inspiriting manner think of themselves in a universal way.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Kathy, anything to add?
Just a couple things come to me, and that is, I feel everything we may want is already within, we already have,
Yeah.
and that there is a larger, more real, larger reality that is within. But again, we
Yeah.
have to be, we have to listen, right? Be ready just to like take some time and to be present.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I appreciate most about Quo is, their poetic use of language that didn't necessarily come across in the raw contact when it was just raw. But this part in the second passage where they're saying the universe that dwells in that shadowy ocean of your brain cells, which opens a gateway to an infinite universe that is the true place where each lives. It's like, what a beautiful way to say that. And again, it's a reminder to me that this channeling process is such an amazing thing, because if you asked any of the channels, like any of the questions put to Quo, they wouldn't sound anything like this. I mean, those guys are all smart and they're all nice, but they're not this wise, and they just don't sound like this. And the language and the wisdom and love behind it, I think, is so beautiful and inspiriting and inspiring. I think we've got one more set of passages to look at. Anybody else have any thoughts on anything here before we look at those? Well, let's look at one more passage on You Are Quo. Pop quiz panelists, name this cartoon character.
Spider-Man.
Thank you. I didn't want you to leave here thinking that you could not answer a single pop quiz question, so at least you got that one. This is from July 16th, 2005, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity. Each of you, as you sit in this circle of seeking today, represents not only you yourself in a unique, precious flower in the field of the Creator. You carry with you a family of unseen presences. Within the circle, for instance, there are overlapping groups. More than one entity within this group is not only an individual, but also a family member of the community, which is represented in fifth density and in sixth density families from which you came to serve upon planet Earth as wanderers, offering at great risk to yourselves your very self, in the hope that by your being very living in flesh and bone, strangers in a strange land indeed, you would be able to offer that energy of unconditional love that would help to anchor the fourth density energies that are now being seeded within the planet that is being born as we speak. That Gaia that is a fourth density, positively oriented planet. Each of you then represents not only the self, but an extended family, as it were, of beings that have allied themselves in various partnerships for this period of time and space. We are not comfortable in going into our planetary origins or those lessons which we have learned on our way to being who we are and where we are, for in many cases, part of the awakening process for people such as yourselves is becoming aware of the incredible connections with a very substantial family group that takes in inner planes and outer planes and all densities of this octave in its system of family relationships, alliances, and spiritually based relationships. The interconnectedness of not only our group, but our connections with each of you cannot be overemphasized. Super beautiful and super inspiring, I would think, to realize that the circle they're referring to here was presumably the circle of people who are gathered for that channeling session, but could equally well apply to any circle of Law of One seekers and any Law of One community anywhere around the planet. That could all be members of the Ra, Latwi, or Hatan social memory complex at some point, and that we are working with many others who are all connected together, including you who are watching this on video in the near or distant future. You're part of that community as well, that we're all connected that way. That's just a super beautiful thing. What do you think, Luis? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I think the title of this section is "You Are Quo," right? And right before it, I had stopped to do a little meditation because I was feeling, frankly, a little nervous. And then as I opened my eyes, I read that sentence, "You are Quo," and it just hit me really hard. And I was like, "Wow!" I felt that loving connection, you know. And I remembered all those times that I have called upon Quo for help, that I've prayed, that I've meditated, and I feel like that you know this principality has been there, and I really love how this passage not only reaffirms, you know, we might actually be more related than we think at a soul level, but even beyond that, the interconnections from the inner planes and from our seeking, right? Like there's so much that I think goes on that we don't see. And I'm just very encouraged by in my life as I've progressed. I feel like I get little visits here and there from this being or that being, and it just really it's like a song, right? It's a beautiful song where everyone is just here to serve, and it's just yeah, it's very moving. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I do choose passages carefully, and I usually try to arrange them in a way that forms some sort of narrative arc. And we started this episode with a question of who is Quo, so I wanted to end with it, the possibility that you are Quo. And just reminds me of so many different secret agent spy movies where somebody gets amnesia and forgets who they are and has to be reminded and remember that who they are and that they're part of a much larger group with a mission, in fact. So that's what this passage was speaking to me on. What do you think, Kathy? Anything to add?
Um, just that the interconnectedness. I'm thinking what's maybe the unsaid here, what comes up for me is not having expectations, getting past the, oh, what do we expect to see? What do we expect to hear? How do we, it's like, and going into allowing and acceptance and along with gratitude. I feel like that's like the secret sauce.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
great one. That's something Quo would say. Yeah.
So where there's that, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what comes, and then when you open yourself up like that, that's when you get to like touch that
Yeah.
infinite intelligence, feel the interconnectedness.
Yeah, so beautifully said. Thank you. Gratitude is the secret sauce. I'm going to remember that one. Chloe, any thoughts to share?
Yeah, what comes to mind is that very popularized quote, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Well, it seems like it takes a village to polarize and graduate, except that village is not just your humans, your fellow humans, it's also your spirit guides. It's also these beings who want to help us if we ask for this help. And, the fact that they say the interconnectedness of not only our group, but our connections with each of you cannot be overemphasized. I feel like what they're really, really wanting to convey is like, we are all in this together. We're one, we're in it together. If you ask for help, you are more than likely to receive it. And that's the energy of unconditional love.
Yeah, it has been said a few times that many wanderers here, most wanderers on Earth are in fact from sixth density, and that many of them are from the raw social memory complex because they're trying to graduate to seventh density. So they have found constituent members who need to go back and refine their balance of love and wisdom from fourth and fifth density in order to find that balance that's necessary to move into seventh density. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Every time I look up at the sun, I just say, there's Ra, and maybe that's my family, and maybe that's where I came from, and maybe not, but I'd like to believe it's true, and I like to act as if it's true. It certainly makes more life more fun and interesting.
Yeah, right. I'll be quick about this. So many of you are probably familiar with Dolores Cannon and her work. She mentioned in terms of like wanderers and star seeds and whatnot, just it's not necessarily, because for me personally, I don't feel like I belong here, and yet I feel like I've been on Earth for a very, very long time. And she mentioned even if you're not from another planet, like it could be possible that you graduated from Earth and decided to come back. You don't necessarily have to, but it could also be both, because we don't really truly know what's going on until we're on the other side.
For sure. Quo has said more than a few times that those children being born today that we might refer to as indigo children are in fact souls who just recently graduated to fourth density, but rather than continuing onward, made the choice to come back because they love this planet. They wanted to help the planet and to balance some of the karma of how poorly, let's say, this planet has been treated. So yeah, I'll bet a lot of wanderers have come back from fourth density. Beautiful conversation, and I'm sad that we are kind of wrapping it up, but this was indeed the last passage to look at. Does anybody have any thoughts, reflections wanted to share before we go ahead and start wrapping things up? If not, where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons we might have from our slightly over an hour conversation? I've got 7 that you might consider. 1, if you didn't know that the name Quo actually means who in Latin, or at least Carla thought it meant who in Latin at the time. That's nice. And that if you did not know that Quo is a group entity made up of Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatand at 4th density, that'd be good to know. And that Quo was formed in order for Carla to be able to channel Ra in a step-down form from 6th density. And that the Confederation are angels as much as they are aliens is a great thing to remember. And that Quo and the Confederation could all be in your mind or in the instrument's mind, since we're all part of one mind, the cosmic mind, the mind of the one infinite creator. Everything's in the mind. And that the real universe is inside, not outside, something to reflect on and meditate on. And lastly, that you, viewer who are watching this, are quite possibly part of the Ra, Latui, or Hatan social memory complex. Or you're just a really cool person who likes watching weird videos. What do you think, Kathy? Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add?
Let's see. Which was it? Something came to me.
Gratitude is the secret sauce, is what you were trying to think of.
Yeah. Oh, maybe come back to me.
Yeah.
In no time, okay?
Yeah, of course. Chloe, any takeaway lessons? Final thoughts you'd like to share?
Absolutely. I feel like this is a good time to remind people that we truly have so much personal spiritual power within us, and the idea that the real universe is inside and the outside is just a reflection of that, that is where a lot of healing happens within ourselves, energetically or physically. It's just, we can do so much to improve what we are dealing with on Earth if we're willing to look inside and deal with those catalysts and process our emotions properly. I think there's a lot of potential for us. So just wanted to remind us of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Luis, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, or final thoughts?
Yeah. First, I'll actually continue with my reflection of what Chloe just said. And I find kind of paradoxical that it's because of this confusion and suffering and craziness that we have the desire to heal, the desire to help each other, the desire to know who we are, is because we feel so lost so often. And that a lot of the message that I find through all these sessions that we've read about is pointing at the concept of identity and looking beyond the identity of a human being, or Luis, Jonathan, Kathy, Chloe, right into this cosmic identity. And I think just allowing that to sink deeper every day seems to be what makes all this make sense.
Yeah, as Quo has said many times, just asking the questions of who am I and why am I here can take you great places if you're willing to dig for it. So there's real beautiful gems just waiting for you just beneath the soil of subconscious that you planted there specifically with your incarnated higher self in order for you to find as you dig. Kathy, anything you wanted to add? Anything come to you?
Yes, and listening to Chloe and Louise really helped made me remember. The first takeaway is, everyone's talking about disclosure right now, but the real disclosure is within. That's where the real disclosure is. And then the second thing I wanted to add was, don't be afraid to feel all the emotions. I feel like that's kind of why we're here, to feel. We don't have to, we don't have to sit in it or let it stay, but to feel whatever comes up, allow, feel, process. And that's, I think, how we heal and grow.
Well said. So beautifully said. And that's what Hatan is there for. I think, to add that emotion of love to the channelings. Much appreciated, panelists. Did want to encourage our viewers, if you enjoyed this episode, you might want to check out our podcast episode on Confederation of Planets, where Gary Bean was one of the panelists, and we talked about the Confederation and the history of the Confederation of Angels and Planets of the Service of the Infinite Creator. You might also want to check out our episode on Ra, which is not uploaded at this time. We just recorded it about a week ago, but by the time this episode uploads, Ra will have been out there for about a week, so check that one out. Also, a podcast episode on angels and archangels, beautiful passages on that. And lastly, on the mission, about being wanderer and how to remember the mission when you might forget what you came here for and who you are. Otherwise, time for pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our podcast, just to end our otherwise serious conversations on a somewhat lighter note, and maybe look for Law of One connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about the entity known as Quo, I thought it would be fun to have a pop quiz on famous cues. Panelists, viewers, I'm going to ask you 3 questions about 3 famous cues in pop culture, seeing how many you can answer correctly. Panelists, go ahead and say your answers out loud so viewers can hear you through space-time. You who are watching this on video at some time in the near or perhaps distant future, say your answers out loud so we can hear you through time-space. I did hear from a friend, a viewer one time, who said she does actually do that, and that made my day. Anyone else watching on video who is actually saying your answers out loud, we love you. These videos are just for you. As always, of course, The points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something interesting and cool, you won. Panelists, are you ready for your first question? Your first question is, who played the character of Q in Star Trek The Next Generation? Was it A, Whoopi Goldberg, B, Gates McFadden, C, John Delancey, or D, Will Wheaton? I think this is an easy question for Star Trek fans. If you're not a Star Trek fan, you probably have no idea. What do you think, panelists? Any guesses?
I am, but I don't know. I think D.
Nice. What do you think, Kathy, Louise?
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm going to go with C.
Nice.
Yeah,
And Louise?
I'm also clueless. Let's just say C.
What do you think, viewer? If you said C, you are indeed correct. That was a lucky guess.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Will Wheaton was Wesley. Oh, how could I forget? I'm obsessed with this show.
Yeah,
I'm so
you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyone who watched Star Trek Next Generation would know this one easily. Yeah, for sure. Gates McFadden was Beverly Crusher. Will Wheaton was her
I
son.
have an excuse.
Whoopi Goldberg played a really wonderful character called Guinan, who often kind of went head-to-head, toe-to-toe with John Delancey. But yeah, the character of Q was super funny, super interesting. He was some all-powerful being whose job it seemed to be was to just roast Captain Picard at every event. He just would just like roast him mercilessly. Super funny. Highly recommend. And the actor John Delancey, of course, did a great job playing that. Are you ready for your second question? Which Monty Python alumnus played the role of Q in the James Bond movie Die Another Day? Q being the person who gives James Bond all the cool tech gadgets. Was it A, John Cleese, B, Michael Palin, C, Terry Gilliam, or D, Grant Chapman? What do you think, panelists, viewer?
Is it A?
A's a good guess.
I'll say A too, even though I'm not sure.
Nice.
This is hilarious. I had no idea, but I was also thinking A, believe it or not.
Wow. You guys are good. And you, viewer, who got that one correct too. Yes, correct answer is John Cleese. Desmond Llewellyn is probably the most well-known one. He appeared in the most James Bond movies. John Cleese only appeared in one movie, I believe, and Ben Whishaw is the guy who is in the current role. The latest ones, and Peter Burton was the first, but only appeared in one movie. Are any of you guys Monty Python fans? Did you watch any Monty Python movies or TV?
Just a
The
little
Holy
bit.
Grail.
Holy Grail was great. Yeah. Super funny. Highly recommend it, but it's British. It's irreverent, cheeky humor for sure. And yeah. How about your last question? True or false? Quentin Tarantino never went to film school. Quentin Tarantino being a fairly well-known movie director. What do you think?
True?
I'll say true too.
I'd say because the question was asked, true.
You guys are doing good for people who really didn't know any of these things. You're doing pretty good. I think you got at least 2 out of 3. That is good. Yeah, indeed. It is true. He's not alone. Apparently, there are quite a few other well-known directors who never went to film school, including Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, Ava DuVernay, Peter Jackson, Ridley Scott, all considered some of the best movie directors out. Never went to film school. Were you guys fans of Tarantino at all? They are pretty violent movies. You'd have to have a pretty good stomach for violence to enjoy his movies.
I do like some of his movies. Pulp Fiction is obviously like Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill are movies I was raised on, which I probably shouldn't have been allowed to watch those movies as a child. But I did.
Bad parenting. How old were you when you saw them?
Probably elementary school still.
Really? Holy shit!
Yeah,
that's
but I didn't really
intense.
understand what was happening till like middle school.
Until middle school. Middle school. Maybe. I don't know. That's still young. Kathy, Luis, did you see any of these movies?
I've watched most of them, but I have friends that love Quentin Tarantino. I've enjoyed the movies, but certainly not something I would watch regularly.
Yeah, I would not recommend these for Law of One folks in
Oh yeah.
particular. They
So you
are
guys wouldn't let your
over the
children watch
top,
it?
graphic, violent. They're most often about revenge fantasies, about revenge. But I have seen Pulp Fiction, seen Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, and Glorious Bastards, Django Unchained. It's just the last two I haven't actually seen yet because once I discovered the Law of One, I kind of lost my taste for violence in the movies. But I still watch them occasionally. Kathy, any last thoughts you want to say good, to our viewers?
I just want to thank you for inviting me, and thank Chloe and Louise for being here, and everyone for watching. And I'm just excited to have been a part of this. Thank you.
So great to have you on. Looking forward to having you on again. Luis, any final thoughts you want to say to our viewers in the near or distant future?
Hanging out with Kathy and Chloe, I really liked everything you guys shared. You're both very deep and insightful, and I feel a lot of love from both of you. And thank you, viewer, and I love you too.
Thank you so much. Let us close with one of my favorite passages from Quo. On January 9th, 2006, Quo said, "Lighten up and find the light touch, the laughter, the bliss, and the joy that are only available when you are focusing on the present moment. Have fun with this, my friends, just as we are having fun with you." Viewers who are still watching this at this point, and according to YouTube analytics, there's only about 20 or 30 people who are probably still watching at this point. Let me assure you, love you very much, and I'm having the time of life working with you. Panelists, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all the friends in L Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this in the video in the near or maybe very distant future, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Love you
Thank you.
guys.
Love you.